The FX Impact is one of the most technologically advanced PCP airguns ever invented, with features that have set a new standard on the market and have given airgun enthusiasts around the world something to be excited about. Today we're going to take an in-depth look at this takedown bullpup, and I'm going to give you my thoughts as someone who has really put this gun through its paces over the last few months, both at the range and out in the hunting field. Let's get to it. Now, I'll be honest with you, when I first saw this gun, I was not quite sure what to think of it. The adjustability and the versatility of the gun was something that really did catch my attention from day one, but I've always been someone who appreciates the more traditional looking rifles. You know, I like the look of a nice walnut stock, and I like the feel of a properly molded cheek piece. But when I picked up an Impact for the first time at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas earlier this year, that bias towards the old school rifles disappeared immediately, and I found that my mind had been changed. For one, the gun was much lighter than I expected thanks to the carbon fiber bottle in the front here, and secondly, this gun was surprisingly comfortable to shoulder. Now, comfort is the last thing you'd expect from a rifle with no stock, but the butt pad is adjustable, the cheek piece is in exactly the right place, the bottle is quite easy to hold onto, and the pistol grip can be swapped with hundreds of other AR-15 grips on the market, according to your preference. No, this gun is not quite as ergonomic as some other rifles out there, but what you lose in that department, you definitely make up elsewhere. Oh my goodness, out of all the guns I own, this is by far the easiest to operate. I've just found myself reaching for it all the time, and for pigeon hunting, for example, which is something that I do a lot of, taking hundreds of shots in a day, and there is just nothing better than the Impact. The 480cc carbon fiber bottle gives about 120 shots per fill at 32 foot-pounds and over 700 shots per fill at 12 foot-pounds, which in itself is pretty insane. But if you buy an extra air cylinder, you can actually put it in a backpack as a backup air supply, because these cylinders have their own valves, which means that you can unscrew them and then screw them back in without losing air. And that is a big deal, because with one spare bottle, I now have 250 consistent full power shots, which means that when I go hunting, I just don't have to worry about bringing a scuba tank with me anymore. The Impact features a really high capacity magazine. This 22 caliber magazine holds 18 shots, which is crazy. And the best part about this gun is that you can cycle through these shots really quickly because of the way that the cocking lever is designed. It's right here by the pistol grip, which means that you only really need 1 or 2 fingers to cycle the magazine and to cock the rifle, and you don't even have to move either of your hands from their positions to get this done, which is good. You keep your eye on the target, cock, pull the trigger, and you're good to go. When you finish shooting, you can take the gun apart and pack it away into a solid carry case. Each part fits snugly into foam cutaways, and there's space for everything. I'm talking pellet tins, Allen keys, spare barrels, etc. It can be extremely difficult to find rifle bags big enough for PCP airguns, especially bullpups, so I am incredibly happy that FX has included the case as standard. This gun is not cheap, but when you look at the cost, you must remember what you're getting with the gun. The adjustability of this rifle was one of the things that really caused heads to turn when this gun was first announced. The butt pad can be moved up or down. The pistol grip can be switched, which means that you can basically customize the rifle to fit your hand size. I've told you this stuff already, but it gets even better than that. The shroud is a telescopic shroud. It can be adjusted, which means that if you are walking through dense bush, like the trees I'm in here, and you just need a short compact rifle, you can grab it like this, you walk around with it, you've got a short gun, but when you're ready to take your shot, you just extend the shroud out and the gun is absolutely dead quiet. I thought this was a gimmick at first, but it actually works really, really well. It feels solid, and if for whatever reason you don't want the telescopic shroud, you can buy a fixed shroud and purchase the silencer, which itself is adjustable because you can add or remove rings to change the length. It's just crazy. With this silencer attached, the gun is still way shorter than your average rifle or carbine. The power of the gun can be adjusted in a number of ways. There's a power wheel right over here, and what this does is it allows you to easily switch between different repeatable power settings. To make minor adjustments, you can turn this knob over here, which limits how far the valve can travel. This really allows you to tweak the power to exactly where you want it. This gun is regulated, and the regulator is actually adjustable from the outside, which is absolutely mind-blowing. But I would suggest leaving the regulator alone unless you're doing something really specific, like for example, if you buy the 177 and you want to only shoot at 15 foot-pounds, you can turn the regulator down and that'll give you more shots per fill. However, for most people, it's set exactly where it needs to be, straight out of the factory, and you can really do almost anything with the other adjustments. One of the really cool features of this gun is it actually has two manometers or pressure gauges. The first one in the front here tells you the full pressure of the rifle, in other words, the pressure of the carbon fiber bottle, and the second one at the back here tells you the regulator pressure. Yes, you read that correctly. You can actually switch calibers with this rifle. The impact is available in 177, 22, 25, 30, and with a barrel that shoots arrows. Switching barrels is quite simple. There's a screw that you loosen by hand. The barrel comes out. You loosen an Allen key at the back and switch out the pellet probe to whichever caliber you want to use. You put your new barrel in, and it has a little groove in the brass which aligns it correctly with the transfer port. You tighten it down, you change your magazine to whichever caliber you're now using, and you're good to go. You will need to re-zero the rifle if you are switching calibers, but if you're just taking out the same barrel and putting it back in like I've just done, the gun should hold zero perfectly. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to explain everything that goes on inside the rifle because it is very, very complicated, but there are a few things that I do want to mention. Firstly, there is no trigger linkage that runs between the trigger and the breech at the back like you see on most bullpups. Everything happens right over here. This means that the trigger is very, very crisp and responsive, and it also means that you don't feel the vibration of the hammer strike right under your cheek. Secondly, according to FX, the valve and hammer system on this gun is designed in a way that there's no metal-on-metal contact when the rifle is fired. What this means is that the noise of the shot being fired is greatly reduced, and the vibrations within the gun is greatly reduced, and this just gives you a way more pleasant shooting experience. Now, those of you that have owned FX rifles will probably agree with me when I say that FX are probably the world leaders in the performance department. No other company has come close to being able to replicate the chronograph results that these FX guns are getting, and I've yet to shoot a gun that fires JSP pellets as well at long range. And I say long range specifically because the smooth twist barrels that you find in all the FX rifles do a really good job of keeping JSP pellets stable at long ranges. Stability issues won't show up at 25 meters, but as soon as you push the ranges out, you can really tell which barrels are doing their jobs and which barrels aren't. Now, before we get to accuracy testing, let me show you what the impact did over the chronograph. What you see here is over 120 very consistent shots at around 900 feet per second with 18 grain JSP pellets. As you can see, this gun is very efficient with the air. This is partly because of a very good regulator, but also because of an incredibly well-designed valve and hammer system. All these shots are within a 20 foot per second spread, and this consistency will really help in keeping your groups tight at long range. If we compare this with some of my other rifles shooting at similar velocities, it's very, very clear that none of them can really compete with the impact. So I guess all that's really left to scrutinize is the accuracy. Now, I'll be honest with you, it takes a fair amount of skill to shoot this gun accurately off a bench, and there are a number of reasons for this. Firstly, it's not a heavy gun, it's not a long gun. You'll find that most bench rest shooters and even field target shooters prefer to use long heavy guns because they are much easier to keep still when you're trying to take a shot downrange and you don't want your crosshairs to be moving. And secondly, the Picatinny rail for mounting a bipod is quite far back. Even with this Atlas bipod that has legs that point forward, you don't get the same stability that you'd get from a long rifle with its bipod far forward. In other words, it takes a fair amount of skill to eliminate the human error variable when shooting with a light gun like this. And as a result, you'll probably find that there are many guns out there that will outshoot this at 25 meters, for example. But let's see what this gun can do at 50 yards, shall we? Right, so time for some accuracy testing. Me being the forgetful person that I am, I brought about $10,000 worth of camera equipment out to this beautiful big warehouse quite far from where I live, and I forgot all my memory cards at home, so we're going to be filming all of this on my iPhone. But if you look behind me here, we've got 50 yards, absolutely no wind in here. The wind's been blowing outside for about a week, so we're not going to do any 100-yard outdoor groups today. We're only going to do 50 yards, but this should give you a good idea of what this gun can do. So there you go, 50 yards, FX impact. Let's do it. Right, so I'd call that quite a conclusive result. This is a 5-shot group with 18 grain JSB pellets. That is well under half an inch at 50 yards. That was shot at Valve 4 Power 4, which is about 915, 920 feet per second with those pellets. And it's interesting because usually I find the pellets shoot better just below 900 feet per second, but in this gun it seems they shoot better at a higher power than a low power, so that's quite interesting. And then I shot with a bit with a 16 grain pellets group. That's not a bad group, but it's definitely not as good as the 18 grain pellets. So if you're going to be shooting with the impact, I would say shoot with the 18 grain JSBs and shoot them around 915, 920 feet per second, and they'll be spot on. Now it's unfortunate that we didn't get to shoot any 100-yard groups today, but if we're shooting groups like this at 50, I can almost guarantee you that this gun will keep it within an inch at 100. The impact features a smooth twist barrel like I mentioned earlier, which is very different from a traditional rifled barrel. A traditional barrel has rifling all the way from the breech to the muzzle, but the smooth twist only has rifling in the last inch or so, and this twist at the end is very, very subtle. What this means is that a pellet will exit the smooth twist barrel spinning a fair bit slower than it would out of a traditional rifled barrel. Now we're not going to get into all the physics now, but a pellet is drag stabilized, which means that it doesn't need an extremely fast twist rate to keep it going straight at long ranges. And that's why this barrel is just well known for being a really good long range shooter. So when the impact is fired at ranges exceeding 100 meters, what you'll see is that every single pellet is incredibly stable. This gun seems to have very, very few flyers, and this really helps eliminate those odd bad shots that just frustrate the heck out of most airgun shooters. No more worrying about which batch of pellets is going to shoot well. They all just seem to perform out of this gun. Now there were only two minor things that I didn't like about this gun. Number one was that I did find it quite difficult to disconnect the female Foster fitting. It is partly my fault because my fingernails are really, really short. I chew my fingernails, so I don't get the same grip that most other people would on the fitting. But I have heard other people complain about the same thing, so I know I'm not the only one. Number two is that you can't fit a sling to this gun very easily. The Wildcat is very, very easy to fit a sling to, and as a result, it's such a great gun to walk long distances with. It would be great to be able to do the same with the impact. And those are pretty much the only things that I would change about this rifle. I just freaking love this thing. So you can expect to see plenty more hunting videos, tutorial videos, etc. with this gun on this channel. To be honest, I'm just finding it very difficult to pick up any other gun at the moment because this gun just gives me pretty much everything I need in an air gun. But thanks for watching. I really hope I answered some questions today. Hope you enjoyed the video.